The first question, as always on this podcast, is simple, but it can have a very deep answer, I think. Given the choice, do you prefer In-N-Out or Five Guys?
Oh, gosh. Well, I'm glad this is a podcast because if it was a video, they'd go, it looks like he likes both of them. So, you know what? It's a definite 4x4 In-N-Out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In-N-Out's definitely winning this season.
Yeah, there's just it's yummy. The other one's yummy.
Yeah, nothing wrong with Five Guys.
Nothing wrong.
I feel like I can go to In-N-Out and the guilt level is less when I leave. It's like, this is an appropriate amount of food. You know?
Well, and there's no calories because there's verses on the paperwork,
right?
All the wrapping and stuff. So that takes all the calories out. So definitely In-N-Out. But that's a learned trait for me because we didn't have In-N-Out in Arizona when I was growing up. So, but I learned very quickly.
You've embraced it in California.
I've embraced it, yeah.
Yeah.
Good question.
Thanks.
Welcome to Season 2 of 10 Questions with 10 Pastors, brought to you by Gateway Seminary, with your host, Tyler Sanders.
This is the second season of 10 Questions with 10 Pastors. I'm Tyler Sanders, Director of Communications at Gateway Seminary, and I'm here with Jeff Evans today, who is pastor of the Vine Church in Rancho Cucamonga. How long have you been there?
We are in our 22nd year.
And you planted the Vine, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I guess it's really not a church plant anymore. I mean, what would you...
Gosh, you know what? It always feels like it's constantly a church plant.
Yeah?
Yeah, it really does.
That's awesome.
Yeah, 22 years. Yeah, me and Ruben Galarza and our families came out from Emmanuel, and we were both doing youth ministry at Emmanuel, and, you know, you feel that calling, and you're like, wow, we don't have a clue, but we just know we have to go. Yeah. And so, then you look back and your kids are all grown and left the house, and 22 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, let's step back even further. Will you tell me how you became a Christian?
Yeah. Growing up in Arizona, grew up in a Christian home. So age 9, Vacation Bible School. I don't know the lady's name, but and as you know, and just being at the Vine, I mention this lady quite a bit because, bunch of 4th grade boys in a not a very well air-conditioned room teaching Vacation Bible School in August. That was when I prayed to receive Christ. And that was, it's weird. It's like, it was yesterday. But yeah, I was age 9.
Wow. Oh, that's incredible. Now, what are you reading right now?
So basically, with now living in Riverside and the church being in Cucamonga, I found Audible to be amazing. Yeah. And so reading, I'm not really reading, but I'm listening. And I'm going to pull up my list because I'm not good at I have to be in the mood. So I'm floating through Todd Bolsinger's book, Canoeing the Mountains. And then I just finished a bio about Elon Musk.
Oh, really?
And
but that was interesting.
Yeah, and then I've watched the Godfather series so many times. I'm actually listening to Mario Puzo's book, so that's a very spiritual book there. And then the other one that I've been hitting on again is John Piper, which anything he does is great, but that's Contending for Our All. Yeah. And then this morning, just driving in, felt like I needed another brush up on Peter Casaro's book, Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. So a lot of times I'll be reading through this stuff and it hits you right between the eyes, and then you're like, okay, that's enough of that. Let's listen to Mario Puzo a little bit and recover a little bit. Yeah.
Let's talk about preaching a little bit.
Okay.
Big picture, when you're approaching series themes, how far out are you planning? What's your process like for the big long term?
Okay, good question. So, becoming the senior pastor with the church plant in my early 30s, there's a lot of, you can listen to guys that are doing verse by verse, Love 107.9 and listening to the Calvary guys and they're verse by verse But then you got some other guys that are just super talented with the series, and they're creative, and they come up with these series, and you're like, gosh, that should be a book. And then sure enough, a year later, it is a book.
Right.
And so in my journey, I found I don't have that talent to do the whole creative series stuff. And what works best for me is really preaching the narrative. So right now we're doing the Gospel of Luke, and I just absolutely love plodding along. And I was told one time, hey, what's the rush? What's the hurry? And so I feel like for me, I need a constant dose of Jesus. Well, how did Jesus live? How did he react in this situation? So for me, we've gone through John, and now we're going through Luke. And so for me, I basically am learning to try and put my time away, because there's that whole idea of, we're the worst at getting our Sabbaths. And so I've been instructed to, hey, why don't you look at taking a Sunday off every 8-9 weeks. Now, some guys might be like, man, I don't take a time off for every 9 months.
Right.
I found for me, though, I get real dry if I've gone about 9-10. So start with the calendar, get some guest speakers to come in. And then in between those times, I'm usually just working through wherever we're at in Luke. So for me, that's been the biggest help, obviously with Christmas and other holidays. And then when you have big events, you want to stop, of course, and at least address and maybe talk about, what's going on. So it's not a hard fast, but here in a couple of weeks, we'll be starting a new series, but really it's a series called Dinner with Jesus, but it's back to Luke 14, and it's just 4 times that we'll be looking at this passage. So some people love the series, and that's what they're tied to, and I get it. For me, though, it's just so much easier just to plod along.
Yeah. And what about like the week to week, developing your actual sermon that you've been preaching? What's your process?
Okay, so for me, the only people I want to talk to in the mornings, and I know we're doing this in the morning, so it's, I guess I love you.
Yeah,
Tyler.
I'm on the list. Yeah,
I guess so. Really is just Jesus and my Keurig machine and my Nespresso, which is really rough doing a Sunday morning.
Sure.
Yeah. So for me, the mornings are the prep time. And I find that I get the best study time just doing every morning to Thursday. For me, Thursday's is the send the notes and the fill-ins and bulletin stuff. So those 4 mornings, and then when things are ideas are popping up, I just pull up another, a document, throw some ideas for what may be coming next week. I find about 30% of the time, though, Tyler, I don't get through on a Sunday what I thought I was going to get through. And so then I take what I didn't finish and kind of rework it a little bit and rethink it through. So that's kind of my process. Mornings are my best time for the study and the writing.
Yeah. What do you think is the most difficult, either passage or topic you've preached?
The most difficult. Okay, so for me, it's not one topic. I am a lousy current events type pastor. So Roe versus Wade just happened a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
So in my mind, I keep thinking, okay, what a great opportunity for the church and for us to get the name of the church out and meet some needs and maybe some new people being at the church. We'll use Roe versus Wade and we'll have a conversation. I know that would be a great idea. I got no skills for that. Yeah, that's not how that's not how I operate.
Yeah.
So I am lousy with the current events. And then with the political climate that we had just come out of, I would say, or maybe getting ready to go back into.
Yeah.
That was torture.
Sure.
Just torture, because what are you going to say? How do you say it? And I just, I feel like the Lord just going, hey, you just need to just keep focusing on Jesus and let me take care of the rest of it. So to be honest with you, the current events and some of these guys, Tyler, they're so dang good. They just speak to this news. They speak to today's stuff and you're just like, wow, that was really, really good. I just pass that on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough to be, I think it is a real skill to have an insightful thought that quick.
Right.
I'm always impressed when people have a really good response to something that's so current. And that's hard for me.
That's torture for me.
I really have to process something.
I do too. I really do. And then half the time I'm thinking through, but do I really understand this? And do I believe this? And is this accurate? And it's like, oh my gosh, things change so much.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do appreciate those guys that are gifted that can do that.
Yeah. Here's a curveball for you.
Okay.
This is a question I'm making up right now. So hopefully when it comes out of my mouth, it makes sense.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier, you kind of still feel like a church planter, or that the Vine still feels like a church plant, though it's 22 years old. So I was wondering if you'd tell me a little bit about the story of planting the Vine, and then help me understand what that means to you in terms of, do you still see yourself as a church planter? Does that affect how you do ministry?
Okay. Hey, that's a good question. So the starting the church plant, I really felt while I was at Emmanuel doing the youth ministry, I began to have a greater love for the parents than I did for the kids. Well, that's great for the parents. That's not so great for the kids because they need you. And I began to realize, okay, that may just be the natural maturing process of kind of where most of us kind of grow away from teenage ministry. And so sent out some resumes. Hey, I've got a mortgage. I got 3 kids. I got a wife, and got to make some money. So I need a church that's already established and I'll fill the pulpit. And I got nothing. You talk about ego buster. I got nothing, Tyler. And Don Overstreet took me out to lunch and he said, hey, would you pray about doing a church plant? I said, bro, I got bills. I got a mortgage. There's just no way. And this is before NAM really came on the scene with church planting as a big deal.
Sure. Yeah.
So it was just like, archaic. And he said, would you pray about a town? Well, when your friends ask you to pray, okay, all right, I'll pray. And he said Rancho Cucamonga. And Tyler, as soon as he got done with the last in Cucamonga, bro, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's where we're supposed to go.
Yeah.
And it was the strangest, weirdest thing. But the journey was, people would say, okay, so how are you going to do this? And I remember my pastor, Rob Zinn, saying, okay, how are you going to get some funding? I said, I don't know. And where are you going to go in Rancho? I don't know. Every question that was asked, the answer was, I don't know. I have no idea. And so fast forward, being in 7 locations, being a mobile church for 17 years, 2 pickup trucks, 2 trailers, car trailers, loading stuff up. And I remember going to Rick Warren's stuff and him talking about being a mobile church. I think he said 12 or 13 years. And I remember being there like year 2 of mobile thinking, Lord, thank you for blessing Rick and giving him 12 years of mobile. But our 2, we're good.
We're ready.
We're ready. We don't need to do mobile anymore. And the Lord's like, really? So no, we were mobile for 17 years.
Wow.
And so I think when you're mobile for that long, you begin to get a DNA in your system of just being a church plant.
Yeah.
But what we found was the people that were coming there, they never thought anything about it. They loved it. They loved the idea of being active. They loved the idea of the stress, the Sunday morning stress. We had one week where, because most of the time we were in public schools, we had one week where the janitor didn't show up to unlock the door.
Right.
So God is so good, though. We had a guy who had a professional kit on how to pick locks.
No way.
And so I hope you don't edit this out. And so he's like, he pulls up and he's like, why are we all standing out in the parking lot? I said, the janitor isn't here. We're locked out. We're going to have church in the sidewalk. He's like, all right, here, come here. So he pulls me aside. He said, look, don't tell anybody, but if the alarm's not on, he says, I can get in there. And I'm all, how can you get in there? He says, just don't ask any questions. Just let me do my thing. Which is, again, probably a good thing to be reading Mario Puzo and The Godfather. It just all goes hand in hand. Yeah. And so, sure enough, he pulled out this little kit, got us in, no alarm. We walked in, turned lights on, started setting up. About 35 minutes later, the janitor shows up. And he's all, hey, I'm so sorry I was so late. I didn't open up. Hey, how'd you get in? And I go, yeah. It's just amazing. I came back over and the door was unlocked, which is true.
Yeah,
because I
right.
came back over after.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's probably a chapter like lying in church ministry, in church planting. But yeah, so I think when you're mobile that long, you have this idea of just, we're always on this journey. We've never, right. Even the location we have now is an old Circus City building, and we're renting it. And so it still doesn't feel like, there's something about, having a building that has roots. You feel like, okay, now we're here.
Yeah.
And we're still praying through, okay, Lord, what's the next journey?
Yeah. Yeah. That's fantastic. So, especially as a church planner, most pastors wear several hats, but church planners wear like every hat. What do you think is, of all those responsibilities, what's your like sweet spot? And maybe what's something that you're still working on?
Okay, so the working on, the list is it's too long because, and pastors that pastor small churches, we all understand how many hats we have to wear. And some of them we don't mind wearing. Some of them we have to wear. And constantly just trying to work through. And, sometimes those hats, especially if it's counseling, I love the Starbucks and I love the sitting with people and talking and sharing. But when it comes to the heart-wrenching, hey, can you give me some tools here to work on this?
Yeah.
Not qualified. If it's beyond, just the simple discipleship and helping them in their walk with the Lord, but if it's really just unpacking some things in their life, I gotta refer them out. I really do. So you try and show love to people, and then move them on. But I would say that's why I'm grateful we have Marta Bomartino on staff that, as our counselor. And so our church people don't part of their tithes and offerings or paying her salary. So that's a blessing to have good people around you. What I am amazed about is how nervous before Sunday preaching. Got your notes, you got your verses, you've prayed through it, you've asked the Lord for his words, and maybe it's just been a lousy, sinful week. And it's just like, Lord, I know I've confessed. I've asked you for forgiveness. I know that this is not a great week for me. And then you start listening to the enemy going, you are the last person that should be getting up on this podium right now. And then processing that all of that pain of back and forth, what am I doing? So that, and you just, Lord, I'm going to be obedient, and you get up there. And I think the sweet spot is his sweetness when he takes over. And you literally know it. And you're just like, oh my gosh, Lord, you just showed up. Then you have those other weeks where you're like, I hit this out of the park. This was amazing. And you get in their car and your wife's all, I don't understand why you went down that road. That was a little off. And you're like, wait, I hit that out of the park, babe.
Right.
And no, you did not hit that out of the park. And then when you're the least prepared or feel the least qualified, that's when the Lord shows up and says, oh, let me remind you, this is my gig.
Yeah.
That, to me, that's the sweetest part.
Yeah. Could you tell me swing and a miss you've had in ministry?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, there's a lot of those too. So we were mobile for 7.5 years. And a piece of property came available, and it was marketed to us as the last frontage property on the 210 freeway. So the 210 freeway had just opened up, I think 2-3 years earlier, like 2005. And so we started looking at this 4 acres, and we got an architect, and he showed us some things that we could do. Since we're doing home groups, we didn't need as much education space. And so all of a sudden it was like, wow, okay, I think this 4 acres could really come in handy. And the Lord just kept opening door after door. We got help from our sponsoring church, Emmanuel. We got help from, all the different partners, our association, our own church people gave, and here we are. We're moving forward. Okay, so we put a sign out on the corner of the, beautiful 4x8 sheet plywood, professionally made, color, future home of the Vine Church. And we went out on that property and we had prayer meetings and we had, all the things you do. And you can see the freeway down below and you're just like, Lord, look at all these people. And this is going to be fantastic. Okay. That was September of 2008. And so as soon as you give the year, you know the rest of the story.
Right.
We kept making our payments until 2013. When finally we were like, okay, this is just, it's too much to keep this and still be renting the high school and renting the office and the youth center. And, we were blessed that we never had to let go of any staff. I had other friends that were letting go of staff members they never wanted to let go of, but financially. Yeah. So we were so grateful for that. But you talk about a swing and a miss, that is, and the church itself, I mean, if you count its dollars and offerings as its own, if you think of it that way, oh my gosh, the Vine Church, we lost so much money during that.
Right.
And that's one of those where you go, Lord, why did you open these doors? Why were you, all the elders were all in agreement. It was like green light, green light, green light to take us down this torturous downturn in the economy and giving. And so, that was a definite swing and a miss for sure.
Yeah. That's tough.
It was, no fun.
Yeah. I've got one more question for you.
Okay.
This is the last one. If you could, what advice would you give to yourself as a first-year pastor?
Oh my gosh. Don't get fat. No, seriously, don't get fat. And that's really becoming a bigger thing right now in some of the Christian writings, and that, we never want to use the word self-help because, we don't go down that road. I think we're getting a little closer to it with the idea of self-care. I mean, that seems to be the lingo going around, self-care. But at the same time, oh my gosh, when I had to get meniscus surgery and couldn't go back and keep playing ball, I was playing basketball with the guys at the church and in church leagues. Oh, not only was it a great stress relief, it was just good fellowship and good discipleship times, and then just good confession times, because you get ugly on a basketball court and you start shoving and you're like, wait a minute, this is my brother in Christ and we're about to go to blows over a dumb church league. And so just absolutely, going back and going, hey, don't stop with the exercise and all that stuff. Because then, we all know, if you don't take everything to the Lord in prayer, you're going to stress something. And so, you start stress eating late at night. And I got to be honest with you, I know just the being, feeling lighter and being more mobile, that would probably be one of the things just for me personally. Yeah. The other one would be just to, would probably be to relax. There's just so much stress that we put on ourselves. Yeah. We're Western Christianity. We're in Southern California, and we're surrounded by a lot of wonderful, great ministries. But we're also surrounded by a lot of really large ministries and guys that look like they've never sinned. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
We hate them in Jesus' name. Right. But if you keep watching them and looking at them and seeing and drive by their properties and stuff, as a new pastor, it gets real easy to get distracted with. And I think it's important to remember, not everything that glitters is golden. And just be yourself, relax, and again, stay in shape. Yeah. And then just sit back and just watch the Lord work through, while you're being obedient and growing in the Lord, what he's going to do. So I think that off the top of my head would be a big one.
That's good. Yeah. That's really good. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Senor. I appreciate it.